Hello, this is Bastions and Basilisk. Currently we're doing D&D, but it is intents of being a TTRPG themed video series. My name is Kalvin.
My name is Brandon.
And today's episode we are going to talk about our 3 favorite classes for D&D and why. And I will start with Wizard. Wizard is my currently hands down favorite class. I think that they are the most versatile as far as the classes go, because I think I looked online at some point, it was like 297 spells or something is what they have access to. Like, wow. They have so many spells, and as long as you have a GM who allows you to do that, there's nothing they can't do effectively. Like, and it's just like, and then the different subclasses are pretty cool, but it's definitely they only get like D6 plus con hit points, so they're a bit weaker, but it's one of those. There's definitely a tipping point for wizards when their power supersedes their lack of physical resilience, because you're like, okay, cool, yeah, no, I'm just gonna summon God or whatever just because it's Tuesday, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah. Okay, not okay, bye, okay, it's good talking, okay, bye. No, I'm gonna go this way. I don't want to. Please don't kill me.
I cast Fireball at 9th level.
Or was it you cast Delayed Blast Fireball and then Force Cage?
Can't whistle right now. Yeah, like I have like these coffee grounds that you saw me put in before we started recording, and they're like in my cheeks, like Ranger did basically. So I couldn't whistle. But
So that's definitely my favorite class, or my number one favorite class. What do you?
So my number one is going to be my go-to, Blood Hunter. Like, I guess like the entire reason why it's my favorite is that it was the first class that I actually like really got into when I first started playing D&D. Because when I first started playing, it was at high school. It was just a random occurrence. I ended up playing like an Elf Ranger because I like bows and arrows, and then I ended up like doing some homebrew games with some friends, and the Blood Hunter was really interesting. I was playing The Witcher 2 at the time, and I thought it was really cool. So I started, and this is like right after it came out. So this isn't like most modern Blood Hunter that Matt Mercer was making. This was like the first gen stuff back when they still had a D20 for their blood right damage and blood right stuff. So like literally the first one, right out of the Ruin was still like a thing. And so I got real interested in that. I really liked the hemomancy, blood magic stuff that they were doing, because I've always been interested in stuff like that. And so my character, barely remember what the fuck he was, but I really enjoyed making that. And then I've gotten to branch out into the Order of the Lycanthrope, the Ghost Slayer. I've never touched the Profane Soul. I wasn't really into the fucking quarter casting thing. Like Warlock already has so little. Yeah. It's like it's a more watered down Warlock. Yeah. Like, so I never played that. And then there was a time where my friend saw a Order of the Sanguine, which was basically a vampire blood like thing. That was a homebrew thing that someone made. And I've really enjoyed the Blood Hunter as a whole because of that. Plus, I really enjoy the edgy, like, I'm going to hurt myself to hurt other people type of like thing that it goes with. So that's just always been something that I've been interested in. And of course, like, you can see how I dress, the edgy emo fucking character basically. But after seeing Taliesin play Malamok, and I know he comes back in CR2, but seeing him play Malamok, I mean, the campaign's ended at this point.
Yeah, I know.
But after seeing him play Malamok, I kind of remembered that, you don't have to stick to something just because it's gritty, and like, even though the PDF or whatever you read it on, because if I'm pretty sure it's only in PDF format right now, they say they're typically nitty gritty outcasts.
Mm-hmm.
You don't necessarily have to play a nitty gritty upset all the time. I hate the world, but I'm trying to save the little guy with little to no thanks, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I thought that'd be really interesting to make a character who was like that, you know, like kind of like Mollymock, where he's like upbeat, trying not to have like the darkness of the world bring him down and shit. But I've never got to do that. So it really sucks. I've gotten to do that with rogues, but never with the Blood Hunter. But that's my first one. My go to character class is always a Blood Hunter.
No, that's fair. That's like I said, I've played one and it was enjoyable. I had a friend play one in a game and that was enjoyable. Like it's a good class. So it's definitely not one of my. It's not definitely not on the bottom of my list. So so my favorite is monks. I don't even know where it started because I don't even think I played that many monks in third edition. But when I played EverQuest way back in the day, my main character was a human monk named Kung Fu Man, Master of Kung Fu. His name and surname. I went back and tried to name a character that, and they wouldn't allow it, which is sad. So, and definitely, in fifth edition, they're just a lot of fun. They're just consistently a good class. I think the first one I played was in my brother's underwater game, and he created a race called the Nephros, which I think I've incorporated into my world, which are essentially sort of anthropomorphic-ish lobsters. And so I was playing a white, like a crystal lobster, actually is what they're called, named Chowda. Chowdah. Because I'm from Maine, so it's Chowda. And I always do it was so funny because he had the claws, so I would do the Bruce Lee thing. I mean, like, whoa, like, and it's just it was a lot of fun to play, and it's like they're just a good class. I mean, they do decent damage. I mean, dexterity's, dex and wisdom are good stats, so they're less likely to get hit, and then with the bonus of wisdom, because that's their secondary, on top of for their unarmored combat thing, like, so that increases their AC to make it comparable to other classes like the barbarian who gets something similar. And then once they get their key points, there's kind of a couple of things that they could do with keys, so it's also kind of I guess kind of a similar reason why I like wizards is it's kind of the tactical thinking of the class. It's not just straightforward. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with simpler classes. Sometimes you just want to play a fighter who just runs in and just smacks the crap out of things, or a barbarian who just always recklessly attacks. Sometimes that's your jam, and sometimes you need that. It's like brain candy for gaming. But it's still like, all right, should I do? I was like, this thing's looking beat up, so I'll hit it with my primary attack, and then should I flurry of blows? Should I just do a normal? Like how should I be like, oh man, this thing's pretty rough, but I'll run in here and I'll draw some aggro and I'll punch a thing and be like, what's up, fuckers? And then I'll throw my key point into a dodge action, so now everything has disadvantage against me. Like, so they don't quite have the hit points, but it's one of those things that it's just interesting what they can do, plus the movement speed. So it's definitely, I love fast, obviously, although you can't see the rest of the collection.
That is excessive.
I also have a full body spandex costume, but I don't fit into it anymore. So I like fast things, and so them getting those speed boosts at level 2, and then they're suddenly like, oh, there's some shit going down 7.5 blocks from here. I'm like, all right, I got it. And she's like, I'm here, and I'm ready to kick some ass. So they're just kind of all around. And then I like I've always been interested in martial arts, and I haven't really had a lot of opportunity to get into some martial arts until a lot more recently. And then I figured out I have kind of my own issues that make it weird. Not like bad. It's just I kind of a why am I not the best at this type of mentality. And so, but like it's definitely interesting learning and seeing the different, so incorporating different styles into, you know, how your character fights. I played a Cobalt Monk recently, and it was a lot of fun playing another small character who just beats stuff up, and, you know, pantomiming like what I'm doing, or explaining that I'm like climbing up somebody and jumping into the air and doing like a inverted knee to the person's head or something. Just like, you know, you could be kind of dramatic, or you could be stoic, or it's they're a good combat class, but there's also a lot more to it, for the philosophy of like that martial arts hold to. So it kind of has its own ingrained or inborn philosophical direction that you can take without, you know, without having to be like, oh, this character was interested in this. Be like, no, it's like, you know, your character went to a monastery of you know, to learn this stuff. Like, what, you know, so it's kind of like clerics, but less religious. So
Yeah.
So that's why monks are my favorite, or second favorite.
Makes sense. So my second favorite. Oh man, this is a little different. So my second favorite, I would probably say Paladin. Uh, it's my like second most used class. Either that or the Rogue. I'm pretty sure I'd say my second favorite would be Paladin, for the sheer fact that I really like the entire fact that they kind of went away with the fact that you have to be religious as a Paladin. Like, it's more so the oath that you make,
Right.
which the oath gives you power.
It's
But that's not necessarily what I
it's
care
more their
about.
conviction in their belief.
Yeah.
Which
So
which I like.
I do find it really cool that, you know, you can have an oath, break that oath, become a different oath, which is the oath breaker, and then find like excuse me, you can find that like redemption, which I found really cool. So the redemption arc can be really cool. But honestly, I really enjoy playing Oathbreaker in general, just for the power behind it. But I really like the idea of like a character just like that's a paladin that kind of starts off their journey, and then like they're tested morally and physically, and they end up having to break their conviction to uh, do either the greater good for something, or to save a minor, like say like a village over the better of the world, you know. So they end up having to break their oath and like having to do, you know, say that redemption path, and either they decide not to do that and they're like, you know what, I'm going to stick to my guns, I'm going to help the little guy even if it ruins things later down the road, which I've done that. And honestly, I just really enjoy smite, because let's be honest, not many people use the paladin spells, they just use smite, at least the people that I play with. And I really like the idea of, you know, you being immune to disease in early on, and you're able to cure other people with like, I think 10 points of lay on hands and stuff like that. I think that's so like really cool, honestly, because it kind of dwindles down on the fact that you need healing potions as much, or healing spells. Like, it's still really important, but it's not like a heavy thing.
It's also
that is
curing disease with it too.
Yeah, that too.
That's like super useful early on, when you're like, oh, you get hit by some disease or whatever, and you're like, oh cool, I have mummy rot, and you're like, we're nowhere near, nobody at like the cleric, or maybe you don't have a cleric, like nobody has removed disease. What the hell are we gonna do? And then you're like, Paladin's like, I got this.
Yeah.
And
as long
like,
as you're
I just used 5 points of my lay on hands pool, so 1 level's worth of healing, and ta-da! You are now cured of a disease.
Yeah, that's a cool thing. Like, imagine like you're playing like a level 3 character, and you excuse me, you're able to do that. So you have 15 points of lay on hands at that point. Someone contracts lycanthropy by accident, you know, like they get scratched and they lose their con save. You're going to be able to cure that lycanthropy. And as much as it would be cool, you know, if the DM was nice and be like, hey, look, you're kind of in control of the lycanthropy. Let's be honest, not all DMs are like that. Honestly, in my opinion, the difference between contracting lycanthropy versus being born with it, or at least being recently contracting of it, is that you don't have control of it. So if you get hit and you go into that frenzy, everyone is on your bucket list, you know? So I think that
would depend on, well, we would delve too deep into other stuff, but I think that depends on the character.
Yeah, I can see that too.
If you're like a barbarian, I know that they already have a subclass that's kind of that, but like you're already used to controlling your rage, if you're a monk, then you're kind of used to controlling your like. I mean, because the key is them
Yeah.
controlling your life. Like, so I think it would be a cool thing for
Yeah, like that would be
based on
very
character
interesting.
instead of just like, oh, all or nothing. It doesn't matter. All characters. If you can't contact, if you contract it, you're screwed. Type of thing.
Yeah, we could also put it like into an aspect of it kind of rewires our brain. It kind of, like you said, it's really based on the class and stuff like that. And I actually really enjoy that because I never thought about it. So that's something that I can think about now. But my classes, my friends never really throw random lycanthropes at us, so we're not really worried about it. But that's honestly like a big reason why I would say Paladin is either second or third favorite, because at that point it's not really in the list. But Paladins are really versatile and utilitarian in being able to like have a way to fix something. Because I'm not too sure if they have mending as a spell, but personally, the way I typically run my games is I have that optional fifth edition thing where
they don't get cantrips.
Yeah, I forgot, but I typically do a thing to where you're able to pick from any spell list, which is an optional thing in the fifth edition, which is apparently sacrilegious because no one likes that idea. It's like, no, they're set spells. Personally, I don't really care. I believe if you're sitting down in time to be able to do something, as long as it's not divination magic, where you have to be religious, then you should be able to cast something. That's how I believe it. Most people tend to stick to their own spell lists anyways, but I think it'd be really cool for healing spells. The rogue who decided to do arcane trickster would be able to cast healing word. Like that's how I kind of feel it. Like everyone should be able to try, but it depends.
Yeah, no, I think that would be, but once again, that's that's an in-game thing. It's like a wizard doing research into cure wounds and learning, like spending time so that they can learn cure wounds. Makes sense. They're the only primary casting class that does not get a healing spell.
I thought sorcerer doesn't.
No, sorcerer, one of their subclasses.
Ah, okay. See, I didn't know about their subclasses. I've never played sorcerer.
Yeah, none of the wizard subclasses allow them to get healing spells. Like
That's
there's
really
the celestial sorcerer, or I think celestial or divine sorcerer allows them to have access to healing spells. Divine warlock, healing spells. Bard, ranger, paladin, healing. Rogue is not a primary caster, but I mean they got arcane trickster, but that's a subclass. Fighter has eldritch knight, but that's a subclass. So it's like wizards are the only primary caster class that does not get a heal spell. But we established they get a bajillion other ones.
Yeah, and if I'm correct, I think Healing Word's a level 1, but if I'm correct, there's a feat that lets you get a cantrip and a level 1 spell. I'm not too sure. I forgot what it was called, if it is. But that again, that's going into in-game mechanics that you'd have to break.
You're having to take a feat to get.
Yeah.
It's a lot more interesting to go into it and do have a wizard be doing the research.
Yeah.
To justify them learning, and even just being like, all right, you can, you spend 6 months, you spend all this time researching in libraries, spending money and doing, spending money on research stuff, and eventually you're able to learn, cure wounds, or you're able to learn, healing word or something.
Like, it gives the reward aspect of being able to do so.
Yeah, and that's definitely more of an in-game thing. And then that I love rewarding players for wanting to do things in-game, because it's not just, do I love just go here, kill things. Go here, kill things. Yes, I love wholesale slaughtering of things. But I played 3rd edition. But I also love the idea of people being invested in their characters and wanting to explore. As long as they're not intending... I mean, I know that balance and meta and game breaking is all of these things, but as long as they're not intending on breaking the game and being willing to be like, all right, well... ignoring that, because I don't think you could break a game with a wizard learning a healing spell. But, you give somebody something... an example I would have for a game that I've played in where the GM kind of was like, all right, we're going to have to rework this, was actually... Or is it Storyteller, technically, because it was in a Vampire the Masquerade game. I took computer hack, like Mastery or something, which is one of the perks, that essentially it decreases the difficulty of all computer-based skills by 2. Which, in this day and age, is broke as fuck. In, the 90s, not that bad. Not that many computers all over the place. But now, everything's a computer. So, he had to rework. He's like, alright, so I'm going to rework it as this. If it's hacking or this, then it's, you get 2 extra dice. If it's just basic computer use, or searching stuff, then it works normally. I was like, you know what, that's reasonable. You're not just taking the entire thing away. You're reworking it so that it's not, because it is game breaking. I'm like, oh, I'm just hacking into everything. We've been playing for a month and a half, and my character's hacking into computers for like the police department, and next is NASA, type of thing. So.
Yeah, I've never played that, so I'm actually very interested in that now that you're bringing it up, because I've never played this. I've heard of it. Wow, this is interesting.
Yeah, that's second edition. That's an older edition. The new edition is apparently better with. They removed a lot, if not most, of the racist caricatures of the older edition. So it's not like the Ravnos aren't gypsies. They're that's not. So they're, and then the set is not just sleazy Egyptian vampires. Like they've removed the terrible racist origins of a lot of things and just changed it so it's just so it's pretty cool. Anyway, this is what it's like to have a conversation with me. Suddenly we're over here. So my third favorite class is, although I haven't gotten to play it that much, which sucks, but it's kind of the similar thing of being in game rewards for. It's kind of just as big of a reward for doing stuff in game as a wizard would be, but it's more of the physical stuff instead of spells, and it's Artificer. And I think it's probably because, I'm going to school for engineering, so it's definitely something that's way more prominent in my mind. Although I do love me the witch class, and I'm sad that I haven't played that yet. But Artificer's really cool, because they're once again another versatile class. They get different infusions that they can get. So they're kind of similar to warlocks in they get it's infusions instead of invocations, but they're like, oh, you get 4, I think, at level 1, but you can only infuse 2 things. So you're kind of limited with it. But it's once again it's better than that because it's not. Because let's say I think my current character has let's say magic armor, just magic weapon, repeating weapon, and then returning weapon or something like that. So you're like, okay, that's so it's I can boost shield or armor by 1, so it becomes magical. So it's a +1 shield or a +1 set of armor, and I get to do that over a long rest. So it's like you're like, okay, we're going into tougher territory, and it's going to kind of squeezed up. So I'm going to give our fighter a bonus to their armor class, or I think this for my character in this other game, I was using returning weapon. So if it's a thrown weapon, it gets the returning property. So now it's a +1 weapon, so +1 to hit and damage. And it's returning, so my character threw a javelin 30 feet and impaled a dog thing, and then it came back to him, and then so it's so but then over the night I was like, oh, I'll give the other player our rogue, I'll make it so that her bow is repeating, so it's she doesn't have to worry about ammo. And it's a +1 hit and damage because she gets good DPS, so let's give that to her. It definitely is rewards team playing. Because could my character have +1 armor and then +1 weapon and just be like, sucks to be you guys, sure. But diversifying, giving different characters different abilities, especially with the magic item stuff that they can get. Be like, oh, I get a bag of holding, or oh, one of our characters doesn't have dark vision. Well, I'll make the goggles of the night. And then that justifies the character knowing how to craft the actual item. If you're like, oh, I was practicing and I know how to infuse items with the type of thing, and then that justifies the character researching, or be like, oh, you've spent enough time learning about goggles of the night or whatever, so now you can make them. So it's definitely a crafting class. Plus they get they have, I don't think they have any direct DPS or attacking spells, but they have a lot of utility spells, especially they have Cure Wounds. Once again, another class that isn't the wizard that gets Artificers get Cure Wounds, wizards still don't. And then going into one of their subclasses even makes them more versatile. I'm a big fan of the Battlesmith, because that's kind of once again, another all around helpful instead of just like I'm pure offense with a gun, or I'm pure defense with the one that drops turrets, or all the different ones. But I mean, they don't have as much spells because I think it's their casting modifier plus half their Artificer level is all they can prep per day, so they're limited. But they have access to all their spells, so they don't have to learn new spells. You don't have to worry about that. So I mean, they don't have a huge depth, but so they're like a partial casting class. So, but it's once again that's definitely a more heavily rewarded for doing stuff in game than it is for just overall badassness of a character like a wizard is.
Never played an Artificer. I have seen my friends, like you said, you tend to do the lending of like the infusions to other people. My friends that have played the Artificer are just, they're like, yeah, it's only for me. See, I've never read into the Artificer, so I never knew you could actually give these things to other people. So now I'm just like, that makes a lot of sense. Like,
I'm
my
very
character...
much a team player when it comes to games. That's why it pisses me off if a person isn't a team player or screws over the party. Like, I take it personally because I spend so much effort. Like, this is a group exercise. We all want to live. We all got to work together to survive. Like, we're going out into the wilderness, and there's werewolves in them there hills. Like, that's like your paladin being like, oh, you got lycanthropy? Sucks to be you. I'm fine. Like, it's like, you have the ability to cure me. I'm gonna, you know what? This is like, that's like when you said like everything's on your shit list. Like, no, specifically the paladin. Now when I go into my werewolf form, I'm gonna personally go kill the fucking paladin. Like, now it's personal. Like, so it's...
yeah,
it's like, I mean, we established, like, I was in the military, I didn't deploy or anything, and you wanted to. Like, that's like deploying. It's, because you're in a battlefield type of environment everywhere, and you gotta trust the person you're with. If the person screws you over, the difference is in D&D, you can just kill them. Like, yeah,
it's like you forget your canteen and your entire squad has 3 extra canteens, but they decide not to give you one. It's like that type of thing. It's like needing to get your corpsman to help you because you got your leg broken, and the corpsman's like, nah, see, here's the thing. Little Bobby over here has a sprained finger, so I'm just going to deal with that instead of your leg. It's like that.
Right.
And the sad thing is that I've seen that happen. I've been that character because I realized the campaign was getting derailed, and like it was going from like we were helping a lot of places in a Skyrim campaign, and it just went straight to shit. And we're just like, I'm just going to do my own thing to make things comical. And I've also been on the receiving end where it's like it was a serious campaign, but this character had like a moral obligation to themselves over other people, so they would just purposely help themselves. And I realized this was taking place over all the characters, so it was just like, okay, it's really cool that you immediately go search their body or search the entire surroundings instead of making sure there's no other threats. But every magic item you have is in your inventory now, and we don't get that luxury of being able to possibly have something. So it's like super annoying, and like we eventually had that solved. But I can see how that's an issue where there's always someone always counting on getting something first and being the sole proprietor of the party, basically.
Like it's a team game. If you want to play a solo game, go play a video game. Like,
yeah,
don't play a team game and be a selfish douche. Like,
yeah,
or have a character that's maybe they screw up on the street, so they had to be selfish. But you have to earn their trust, and then it's their ride or die. Like, it's make it more complicated than it's just I want to be a douche. Like, I'm just an asshole. Lols, random.
I think it'd be really interesting to where it's like a character is like that, but since they've like joined the group, it like the DM would force them to like, hey, roll a percentile die. If it's this or this, like below this, you're selfish. If it's this or above, you're gonna kind of like withhold your selfish nature and like let the party have it, but you're kind of angry about it inside because you are self-serving. Like make it into like a chance of the die type of thing. I think that would be pretty interesting because I've seen that happen. A couple of my characters have had that issue to where it's like I personally am torn as thinking for the character, so the character is like, all right, look, DM, my character can't decide, can I roll a percentile die, and then we'll go with that. And then usually it's like, all right, then my DM has made us do it. And even the DM's done it for characters that were NPCs. It's a very interesting thing.
All right, we're delving too far away now.
Yeah, mechanics in game again. But for my last favorite class, it'd definitely be the rogue.
Like, it has to be rogue, considering the paladin conversation.
Yeah, like it's the rogue. So yeah, so again, like this isn't necessarily like in specific order between 2 and 3, but like the third one that I'm going to say is rogue for the sheer fact, just like sneak attack. Always went sneak attack, doing everything on top of what the assassin subclass is, just even harder. And I think the biggest reason why I ended up like really falling in love was that we did a modern campaign where we had it take place in modern day. There was not much magic. Arcana was like technology hacking, so it was a technology skill. So a lot of the race feats were turned into basically like you had the abilities, but they were just humans. So I was playing a Asian character as I'm Vietnamese, and like I base most of my characters off of my height, my build, all that jazz. So basically, we were playing a campaign. My character was actually a chaotic neutral hitman. My other player, he was he originally was going to be like a lawful neutral character, but ended up going batshit fucking crazy within the first 30 seconds, and shit happened there. But my character was a rogue. We ended up leveling up to where we got assassin, and the moment where I knew I fell in love with it was when we had a mission where we had to assassinate a guy because we were working with like gangs in game because it turned into an evil campaign. We had this guy who was an informant, and he was in a police car. So my character had, I think I just bought like some sort of sniper rifle, and so I had to roll a nat 20 just to make sure I shot this guy correctly. Like there was a window slit in the like the police car, like really small, and I'm looking at my friends. There's a DM and my other friend, and I'm looking at him, and I'm like, I'm not going to roll a nat 20. He's like, you're not, but you know, let's see how this goes. Because if I failed, the police were everywhere already. Like this was a very high value individual, so it was a big thing. So I just picked up a die and I just chucked it, like expecting like my character to get obliterated. It rolls a nat 20. So my my DM goes, dude, how much does that like gun do? And it's like 2d12 damage plus my sneak attack plus my assassination, which is all doubled.
Oh, yeah.
I think I did like almost 150 damage in like totality because I was rolling like really high shit. And I think I was like level 14 at the time, so I had really high speed. Plus other bullshit, like I had poisoned the bullets and shit. Like I had a whole bunch of stuff like to adding on top of it. So I ended up like blowing this dude's head off, and like I just dismantled my gun really quickly because I had to make a skill check for that nat 20 that broke it down in like a minute, put it in my backpack, and I'm running down like the stairs. Like I disguised myself as a FedEx guy, walk down the stairs, and like I walk, and like there was a police station like nearby, and we had like stolen a police car, escape, and like I just remember that assassination thing. My DM described because he's a gun guy, he described how the bullet fired and like ricocheted through the barrel and like it going through the air, the perfect wind parameters of like everything happening, and it like my character even being able to see as far as it was in fine detail as being a sniper, this guy just having the bullet enter his head slowly, exploding, being able to capture that detail, solidifying it in his brain as another mark hit, and the pride my character felt. So just seeing that made me love the rogue, and like that became, I think, a second go-to class. Like if I didn't want to play blood hunter, usually I played a rogue with the assassin subclass. So that's it. That ended up being like a huge thing. Plus I was really known for like just being a kleptomaniac. I would just like pickpocketing things and stealing shit. So it's just like normal rogue shit on top of that. So that was really interesting. Plus the, you know, the evasion and dodge actions being a bonus action, and then that other one with the AoE, I think that's evasion.
Yeah, evasion, uncanny dodge is a reaction, but yeah,
that's the one that I was thinking of.
And hide as a bonus action with
their bonus action,
cunning action. Yeah,
they got so much stuff. That's like
they have a lot of use, especially, you know, you could do the 2 weapons, so then you have some use like their action efficiency. We haven't even talked about action efficiency at all, but that's one of the things I like about Monk is their action efficiency. Same thing, like, yeah, rogues are pretty cool, especially because one of the things you have to remember, too, is their sneak attack specifically says once per turn, not once per round. So if you sneak attack somebody and then somebody decides to run away, break away without disengaging, you like sneak. You get an attack of opportunity. You get sneak attack on that too.
Yeah,
So,
there's like it's specific to that instance of using
yeah,
it
and
within that.
they're
So
they're very good bursts, especially like with. So an idea I had specifically is you get a cleric, order cleric, and then 2 assassins, and essentially like you all have to get really high on initiative, but essentially like you all go through like the 2 rogues go first, they get their sneak attack assassination damage, and then the cleric at higher levels, I think they can target 2 people with it. Essentially, they have a thing that if they use a spell on somebody, they can use, I think, their channel divinity or whatever to make the person do an action, and so you can essentially force up to 2 characters at that point. Well, not force, but give them the option of using their attack of opportunity or the reaction to attack again. So you can effectively have 4 assassinations in the first round of combat, which if you could put like that's one of those like that's if you could pull that off, you're like, I'm sorry, they're Tarrasque. What did the Tarrasque do? What's a Tarrasque? Like I mean, especially like you're like 17, you're like, oh, that's I think that at that point that's 96 per rogue plus sneak attack. So plus it's doubled for crit. Like they're very good. That's why if I'm playing in a game with a rogue, I always make sure that I get adjacent to an enemy.
So that way you can do that.
Yeah, it's all like once
really
again.
good.
I love. I'm very strong in the tactical. I'm not as strong in the role playing, but they're such a good class. Yeah, Assassin's good. One of my friends is actually gonna be playing Phantom, which is Natasha's, which is also
I've played that. I never got too far into the Phantom, but it had some really cool abilities. I was also playing Jazalt with a druid, so I put way too much into the druid aspect and put the rogue on the wayside. But yeah, it's like a really cool thing because if you, like you said, if you're close to someone, the assassination perk allows sneak attack when they're flanked, so it kind of negates that once a turn thing, and you have the what is it, disadvantage, or when you have advantage on the attack, that also clicks in. So it's really interesting because as long as you have a guy that's like adjacent, like you were saying, like you have that assassination sneak attack damage like added onto it.
Sneak attack, not assassination.
Just sneak attack. Oh, yeah. Assassination is the one.
Specifically,
yeah.
They have to be if it's the first round of combat, you have advantage if they're surprised, or if they haven't taken their turn yet, which means they're surprised.
Yeah.
Or no, it's something like they get advantage, and if they're surprised, it's critical. Like assassins are very front loaded, which is why I actually built a character, an NPC in a game that was a warlock, a warlock assassin, and using Eldritch Smite, because you were talking about Smite, and using Eldritch Smite, you're like, oh cool, I just use a spell slot, which is a lot more useful with a warlock, because you're like, cool, I just slaughtered this guy. I'm gonna take an hour nap. Cool, now I got my spell slots back. Now I can do it again. So it's, but yeah, no, rogues. I mean, definitely in 3rd edition, I played a lot of rogues. Actually, one of the things is I broke into somebody's house, stole some stuff, was escaping. The guards spotted me. They came over to question me. And they had dogs and everything, and this is one of those nat 20 and the clutch moment. I was like, all right, I'm gonna use bluff. I was like, what's that thing doing to that lady? And I rolled a nat 20, and even I think the dog rolled a nat 1 on its sense motive, so the dog was like, huh? And so I'm like, I just grabbed my shit and ran, and it's just nat 20s are always the best or the worst. They're always the best or the worst, but they're great for story stuff, but
yeah, RP and stuff.
Yeah, but yeah, no, rogues are a good choice. I haven't played. I don't think I've really played a rogue in 5th edition yet. I think because I played so many rogues in 3rd edition, I'm like, I'll try other things, and so it's
yeah.
But no, they're a good class. There's some classes. We'll go over that in one of the future videos about which ones I hate. But
cool.
All right, we're getting there up on time. So This was a lot longer than I was expecting it to be, but I'm not complaining.
It's all good.
Once again, we are Bastions and Basilisks. Well, not we are, but this is Bastions and Basilisks. He's Bastion on Basilisk. Because he's rock solid. And
what the fuck are you looking at?
And I'm pretty fly. Yep, that's me, super fly, for a white guy.
Jesus.
Yep.
The Offspring.
Yep. That's
I've never heard that song.
Oh, sweet summer child. This is Bastions and Basilisks. I am Kalvin.
I'm Brandon.
And we will catch you all later. Bye.
See ya.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And now you get to listen to the outro song. And that's the outro song. Yeah.